At the oldest hospital in London to still stand on its original site, the Hospital of St. Bartholomew, which has occupied this site since the year 1123, when it was founded along with the monastery of St. Bartholomew. Inevitably, that was dissolved by King Henry VIII, who was then prevailed upon to give the hospital back to the City of London. This he did, and so to commemorate the act of generosity on the part of the despotic monarch, the stonemasons, who were then rebuilding St. Paul's after the original one, or the old one, had been destroyed in the Great Fire of London, they brought away some of the stone of St. Paul's, and here they built the Henry VIII Gatehouse. And above it, in that niche behind the lamp, you can see the only outdoor statue to Henry VIII that you'll find in London. But the hospital is well worth a visit. Firstly, they've got a magnificent museum inside that tells the history of the hospital. From that museum, you can sometimes catch glimpses of the grand staircase to the Great Hall. And that staircase is notable because it was painted by the 18th century artist, engraver, and satirist William Hogarth. Now, when I say William Hogarth painted their staircase, I don't mean he turned up with a few cans of gloss and splashed them over the banisters. He painted two magnificent wall scenes that show the pool at Bethesda and the Good Samaritan. And for his models in those paintings, he actually used patients who were then being treated at St. Bartholomew's Hospital. And such was Hogarth's eye for detail that to this day, students, medical students, at the end of their first year, will be brought to this staircase by their tutors. They'll be stood on the staircase, and the tutor will point to them, to a patient on the painting, and say, what was he suffering with? And Hogarth got it so right, doctors to this day can look at those paintings and actually diagnose what the condition was the patient was suffering with. The hospital is also worth a visit because of this church on the other side of the railings. The Church of St. Bartholomew the Less, the only hospital parish church in the whole world. But it's also worth visiting for anyone here tonight who might be thinking of taking up the art of epitaph writing. Because in that church is the Balthrop Memorial. And the Balthrop Memorial is a lesson to all epitaph writers because it tackles that thorny issue that all epitaph writers will come across sooner or later. What do you do when you're writing someone's epitaph and they're so selfish they've gone and died in a year that you can't get to rhyme with what you've just written? How do you get around this problem? Well, what you do is you turn to the Balthrop Memorial for inspiration. Here Robert Balthrop lies entombed to Elizabeth our Queen, whose sergeant of the surgeons sworn near 30 years have been. He died at 69 of years, December 9th the day, the year of grace 800 twice, deducting 9 away. So that's the way to do it. But also in the hospital there is a lift, an elevator, which staff have poetically dubbed the coffin lift. And it's so called for several reasons. Number one, it's a wooden lift. Number two, it's tiny. You get 3 people in the coffin lift and it's claustrophobic. Number 3, it's got this unnerving habit from time to time. When people get into it in the dead of night, it doesn't matter which floor they press for, the coffin lift takes them straight down to the basement. Its lights go out and it will not move. After a few moments of madly pushing the buttons, they'll get fed up, pull the gates open, and start to walk up. When they get back to the ground floor, lo and behold, the coffin lift is waiting for them on the ground floor with its gates open and its lights on. Now they think, enough's enough. So they'll start to walk up to the level they require, and as they do so, very slowly, the coffin lift begins to follow them from level to level. Can you imagine being followed by an elevator? To give you some idea of how unnerving it is, it's an old-fashioned elevator shaft where the stairwell twists around the open shaft. So as you're walking up, you can hear it and see it creaking just a little way beneath you. You stop, it stops. Continue your journey, it creaks into life and follows you step by step by step. Why does it happen? Well, I can only really turn to hospital tradition, which maintains it's the ghost of a nurse murdered in the basement in this elevator in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, or 60s, depending on who tells you the story. Now, I do like, wherever I can, to get to the bottom of these stories. If you like, I like to find that little grain of sand around which the pearl of the legend or the ghost story was formed. And I would have thought this would be an easy one to trace the origins of. After all, I know we live in high crime times today, but I'd hazard a guess, if a nurse were murdered at a leading London hospital, even today, if it didn't make the national press, it would most certainly make the local press. And so with that in mind, I went to the city's library, the Guildhall Library, went through the microfiche of all the local newspapers, right back to the 1920s, and I can find no record of any such murder ever having occurred at St. Bartholomew's Hospital. But then again, this is often the case with ghost stories. Sometimes we have to accept that things happen without knowing for certain why it is they actually started happening in the first place. Which brings us now to somewhere we most certainly know why this is haunted, because for many years this area was one of London's major execution grounds. And as we step out onto the smooth field, I'd like you to look closely at this wall over here as you walk past it. Notice the large chunks taken out of the stonework. This is in fact shrapnel damage from a Zeppelin raid in 1916. The Zeppelin dropped its bomb in the middle of the square over there, and the damage from the shrapnel is still visible as you walk past this wall. So let's make our way onto the smooth field.